Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta tajul al-hazna idha shi'ta sahla, Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husna ibadatik ya Rabbil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alright, ladies and gents, let's get into today's dars. Where are we, Shaz? So on the beginning of the 7th line, وَيَبْسُقُ فِي الصَّلَاةِ عَنْ يَسَارِهِ وَفِي الْمَسْجِدِ فِي ثَوْبِهِ وَتُسَنُّ صَلَاتُهُ إِلَى سُتْرَةٍ قَائِمَةٍ كَمُؤْخِرَةِ الرَّحْلِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ شَاخِصًا فَإِلَى خَطٍ. That's good enough. One is allowed to spit to his left side or into his cloth if in the mosque. It is the sunnah to pray towards an upright sutra the size of a saddle, but if you can't find anything solid, then he uses a line. Alright, so inshallah today I'm hoping to clock the chapter of the sutra. Alright, that's like the plan anyway. Alright. But we start where, because we left in the middle because it was getting long, the potential difficulties in understanding the issue of the spitting. So we were discussing the fact that the Prophet ﷺ told us it's not allowed to spit in front of you because Allah is in front of you, and how do we understand that? And then we're now talking about left and right, and how do we understand that? So he said, okay. So I think we've dealt with the problem of spitting in front of you, all right? And what does that mean with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He is above His arsh in a manner that befits His majesty, and then how He's in front as well. And we said that that's not our problem. We don't understand that. We're limited, and we should just accept some things we don't appreciate. And we also said that even you can actually possibly even put an explanation forward, and it's not so mad either. And we gave the example of the sun that is up there, but it's still here, and we feel its effect. And so no major. And then we had a little discussion about how that's an important principle of Ahl Sunnah, that taslim, basically to submit to the text. All right, and this submission to the text, as I said, is something which is a very important principle, just generally for Ahl Sunnah, but even more so for today's generation in everything they come across, because there are more doubts being put forward today than any other time in history. And there's, historically, we've not been a minority before. Historically, our minority in Spain and so on and so forth was minimal, and in terms of time, we kind of took over quite quickly, so we became the majority. We didn't really kind of have this idea of, how can I say, large communities of Muslims living under non-Muslim rule for any kind of real long length of time. And in the last few hundred years, obviously that's happened. And so therefore doubts and questions and issues have really started to come to the fore. All right? And so it is important to have scholars that understand, and we have a rich history of refutation, as I spoke about. We've never shied away from the kuffar and all of their arguments and their ideas and so on, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself deals with the shubuhat and the shahawat, the doubts and the desires of the kuffar, on a case-by-case basis. And so we have a methodology, but ultimately the methodology is always going to end in its perfection with trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His wisdom. All right, so that the first problem was the issue of Allah, how is He in front of you. The second problem, وَأَمَّا الْإِشْكَالَ الثَّانِي فِي الْحَدِيثِ, this is at the bottom of 271 of Al-Mumti'. He says, وَهُوَ أَنَّ الْبُصَّاقِ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ عَلَّ لَهُ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم بأن على يمينه ملكا. That the idea that you spit to your left when you're outside, okay, of course it's not in a masjid. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said that you do that, spit to your left, if you need to spit, in the prayer. By the way, side point, that also is an indication, a soft indication, that spittle, right, and phlegm which is deeper from the chest and has mucus and so on and so forth, some scholars did consider that the swallowing of phlegm is something which breaks the prayer, meaning it's seen as food, right? Like eating and drinking, coming under that category. Normal spittle that gathers in the mouth is not that. Normal spittle in the mouth, which is part of salivation and just, being swallowed, is not the swallowing of eating and drinking. However, coughing up and so on, that is what is being intended when it comes to this. Now, we're going to speak about actual proper phlegm, when someone's got a really bad infection, what's going on later. For now, just understand that there is an absolute definite need to spit. Just think of it like that. What happens? If you're outside, we know that you spit to your left-hand side. Why not to the right? The Prophet ﷺ said, because there's an angel on the right-hand side. That's the hadith. Problem with the hadith is that there's an angel on our left-hand side as well. Okay? That's what the Shaykh is trying to deal with now. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Qaf, عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ, that there is on the right and on the left is a qa'id, someone waiting, someone sitting. فَهَذَا مَلَكٌ وَهَذَا مَلَكٌ. So this is an angel, this is an angel. You get different angels, qualities of angels. You have two angels, on the right and on the left. So we can say, first of all, in response to this, that it doesn't have to be spitting, right? You could take out that clause, not take out that clause, avoid that problem theoretically, and say that there is another way. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh, yaf'alu hakadha," that or he does this. So he said he either spits to his left or he does this. So it's not like the Prophet ﷺ is full on saying spit to the left. This is what Shaykh Uthaymeen is saying. He's saying that with the fact that you are meant to then he actually did this. The irony of me wearing this, but the point is that he said that spit to your left or do this, and he actually didn't get this, but the as I said before, 2 sheets was a luxury when it comes to the clothes of the companions, and so the rida at the top is like a loose cloth, and it doesn't matter actually what he got, but that's what he took. He took the top. But if you got a scarf, and the Saudis, for example, in Saudi culture or in Arab culture, where they are into a lot of this spitting, it refers to the shimagh, okay, or any kind of cloth. And he took the left one, وَأَخْذَ طَرَفَ رِدَائِهِ فَبَزَقَ فِيهِ, and he spat into his into his cloth, وَرَدَّ بَعْضُهَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ, and then he put it together like this, and he folded it so that it could not be seen. So basically, the Shaykh is saying that in this scenario, you didn't spit at the front, didn't spit at the right, didn't spit at the left, you spat into basically your handkerchief, is what's basically being said. Because pockets were also not a big thing. Why pockets not a big thing? Because a pocket is an excess cloth. To have a pocket, you need obviously a double cloth behind it to actually hold it. So pockets were not a big thing. So in our time with pockets and tissues and all the rest of it, that in modern times basically means that you cough and you spit into your handkerchief or your tissue, all right? And you just take it out, cough, fold it up, put it into your pocket. Yeah. The other way of dealing with this, if you want to get round the hadith, if you like, is that the Prophet ﷺ did, in another hadith, said, but spit, وَلَكِنْ عَنْ يَسَارِهِ أَوْ تَحْتَ قَدْمِهِ الْيُسْرَى. So if you spit, then spit to your left or spit underneath your left foot. So the idea is to spit down if there's something that has to be spat, again, obviously outside, and then you bury it effectively, like you would, like stubbing out like a cigarette, whatever, all right, and under your left foot. This hadith is narrated by Imam al-Bukhari in Sahih al-Bukhari in the chapter of the prayer, in the chapter of do not spit to the right in your prayer, hadith number 410. And it is narrated by Imam Muslim in the book of Masajid, subchapter, the chapter of the prohibition of spitting in the masjid, which is again a proof that it's not allowed to do this in the masjid. Because you might say, well, hold on, in the masjid, that's fine because it's made of earth or whatever, and spit going back to earth is no problem, neither here nor there. And as we said before, this is not about that. This is about the sanctity of the masjid. None of us obviously would imagine ever doing that, but it's not allowed obviously to do this in the masjid. The hadith to remember that, I stated this last week, is that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-busaq fil masjid khati'ah." To spit in the mosque is a sin. Khati'ah in Arabic means a mistake, and I don't really know what the best English word to use here is, but I don't think it's a major. It's like a serious mistake, maybe a serious mistake or negligence. I want to use a serious word, but it's got to be soft enough, because the Prophet ﷺ then followed this statement by saying, وَكَفَّارَتُهَا دَفْنِهَا, that its expiation is to bury it, right? Which is a minor really, when you think about it. So if you did it, you probably wanted to do that anyway. So burying it here does not mean the pound into the ground with the left foot idea, but that you literally dig it up so that it's not even in the mindset of a person. Yeah? That completely gone, disappeared. So that's why I'm kind of reticent to translate it as sin. But, serious mistake. All right? This hadith is also narrated by Imam al-Bukhari in the chapter of the prayer, and in the book of the prayer chapter, the expiation for spitting in the masjid, hadith number 415. So clearly that's yani. Also, the Sheikh did say that the spitting, so not only are you not allowed to spit underneath your foot in the masjid, but also you're not allowed to spit on your left unless you are able to spit outside the masjid. Now that's very possible, by the way. All right. Obviously, we don't have masajid which are open, but the Muslim world has lots of these kind of masajid. Like in Africa, for example, I don't know about the majority, but certainly where the majority of the Muslims pray, they are open. They're like a kind of like a just 4-tent kind of structure, and a small kind of 3-4 brick kind of wall, and you could just literally spit outside, and that's it. There's no major issue. Aji, Assalamu alaikum.
I'm going for the Umrah.
Are you going tomorrow, inshallah?
Yeah.
وفقك الله واستودع الله دينك وأمانتك وأخواتي وعملك. You know the deal, yeah?
Yeah.
You know what the deal is?
Yeah. Is it some government from here?
Yeah.
Or something?
Yeah.
10 days, okay?
No problem. Barakallahu feek. Jazakallah khair.
Okay.
Barakallahu feek. Jazakallah khair. Haji Abdul Haq is going for Umrah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take him safely, bring him back, and accept his Umrah and his dua. Allahumma ameen. So it's possible. So it's not actually the action of spitting which is impermissible. It is the spit itself which is impermissible. So it is permissible to spit. Obviously, you'd have to be on the left-hand side. Don't spit next guy's face, yani. All right. But if you're on the left-hand side, you can spit out if you need to. That's something which is permissible. Anyway, Sheikh said, whatever happens, you're going to spit. There's going to be a little bit of movement, but this is okay because this is one of the reasons that movement is allowed. If you need to spit, then there's going to need, he's saying that this is also one of the proofs that you can move. If you're being told that you can spit to your left, not to your right, not to the front, by default, that means a significant turn from straight and right. So there is some kind of, it's not exactly just center of left, it's left. So there does need to be this kind of movement or this kind of movement, which again shows that if you're not going to spit at all, and then, which a lot of people think is a lot of movement, putting your hand in your pocket, pulling out a handkerchief, and this is nothing. You should feel very comfortable doing that kind of movement in the prayer. It's very much a prayer movement as well. Someone who, very assuredly enters, picks up, sneezes, and then puts it back. This is exactly what we expect a person to do in the prayer. What we don't want, and this is, the other day, like we said, we want people to have confidence that their phone is ringing, pick up the phone, pick it up, put it off, or cancel it, or whatever, and put it. Nice, solid, smooth movements, and not all this stress and whatever. Doing the other things is more harmful to their prayer and our prayer as well. Anyway, the other thing, Sheikh Uthaymeen, he mentions a nice point. He goes, and if we're not going to go with this and we're going to stick to the whole argument that, there's an angel on the right, so why are we kind of, disrespecting the angel on the left? Sheikh says, also it can be argued that they're not of the same level. So the angel on the right is not the same as the angel on the left, because there are some athar, and you can see, You know when a scholar says that, all right, it's a clear indication to you that the game is not a clear one, but it's not the most devastating of proofs. يعني he's speaking in a general way. هناك آثار, all right. أن الله أعطاه سلطة على الملك الذي عن اليسار. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are some narrations out there that Allah has given authority to the right angel, to the angel on the right, over the angel on the left. Like he's controlled. Now the most famous of these narrations, the most famous, is, all of them, to be honest, are a version of what I'm about to say now, which is that as narrated by Imam al-Bayhaqi in Al-Shu'ab, and although Shaykh Uthaymeen here says this narration is da'if, and but what does he say? He says that in this particular narration, Alaykum salam. Why is Poland offering discount or something?
We're on discount.
You have no doubt. This is Asl Mal, yeah, by the way. Nestle Asl Mal, yeah? But man's is a rock, yeah, so you're wasting your time. Oh, shut up, man. What are you hating for? Chocolate, biscuit. So, this hadith and all of its versions say effectively the same thing. That the angel on the right always says to the angel on the left, wait, 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 as it wants to write down the sin. So the person sins, and it's done. The sinning is done. And the angel wants to record it, because everything is recorded. Kiraman katibin. They write everything down. And, we're not even talking doing. The angel on the right hand side, if you've got a good intention to do something, that's written down. Which is why you always have good intention, right? On the left, you've done the sin. He says, wait, لَعَلَّهُ يَتُوبُ لَعَلَّهُ يَتُوبُ. It's very possible that he's going to make tawbah. It's very possible he's going to make tawbah. I remember, of course, in our deen, tawbah is the greatest thing that anyone can ever do. And the Prophet ﷺ said, التائب من الذنب كمن لا ذنب له. The one who makes tawbah from a sin is like the one who has got no sin. So if we're going to take this hadith, which is a very authentic hadith, and we're going to understand the concept of tawbah, which is very clearly understood that it's the greatest of all actions, then these other weak narrations that are going into details of how it might happen in terms of angel interaction, although they are weak in their wording, their meaning, inshallah, is correct. So there does seem to be some kind of hierarchy of some kind of nature where the one on the right is controlling the one on the left. All right? So Shaykh Uthaymeen, and in this particular narration, انتظر لعله يتوب فلا تكتب عليه, just wait, maybe he's about to make repentance, don't write it down against him. Don't write it down against him. Shaykh says, if this athar is actually sahih, clear proof that he doesn't think it is, by the way, okay, then the answer is clear. We have a more respected, more important leader on the right. وإن لم يصح فلا شك أن من كان على اليمين أعلى مرتبة ممن كان عن اليسار. He goes, but there's no doubt that even if this is not authentic, that the one is on the right is going to be better than on the left, writing good things, writing bad things, general principle of the the right always being better than the left, etc. So it just generally, it's a good game. But of course, all of them are وَكُلُّ مَلَائِكَ كِرَامٍ. They're all ennobled messengers. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ كِرَامًا كَاتِبِينَ, as Allah says in Surah Al-Infitar, verse 10 and 11. And indeed, there are upon you those who preserve noble scribes. All right, let's talk about this next statement. If you are in the masjid, then do it in your thobe. Your thobe here means your garment. Your garment here means anything today. Then there's no such thing as tissues and scarves and X and Y, whatever. Scarf, yani maybe in amama, but yani basically today this is referring into a tissue or in a handkerchief. All right, and this is specifically for the masjid because it is a serious sin or mistake, serious thingy to spit into the masjid. All right, so you don't spit to the left, you don't spit underneath, you don't do anything else. Shaykh Uthaymeen makes a nice point as well. He said, by the way, when we think about this hadith, that if you do spit in the mosque, then to bury it is its kafara. to make it disappear completely is its kafara. He says that this is an indication of the importance of the maru'a and adab in Islam. Now maru'a, I don't know whether that's the right word here. Maru'a means chivalry, okay? Or what we used to call a couple of years ago, what was it called? Manliness, maybe? Yeah, manliness. Manliness? What's that kind of cool word that was going around for that kind of male grooming stuff? What was it? Manliness. Maybe it's manliness, yeah. So that's more kind of manliness. I don't think that's the right word. But adab, definitely. And what he's basically talking about is that it's very important that this hadith is a proof that we've got to take things which look bad seriously. Now, there's an idea out there that, Muslims should all be rough and ready and, be prepared for everything and not be too sensitive and not be a snowflake and, all the rest of it, not be millennials, yeah? So the idea is that you've got to actually be, you can be as rough as anything. But the truth is that the Prophet ﷺ used to take this very seriously. He didn't want even the appearance of spittle to be in the masjid. And Shaykh Uthaymeen then continues that when the Prophet ﷺ would have marital relations, he would not allow, for example, bodily fluids and things like that to be seen, to be cut, to be even seen by the Prophet ﷺ or his wives, and also stains and things like that. They were to be removed, and the general cleaning of the masjid and so on and so forth. And so the Prophet ﷺ has made it a clear point, al-qadara, al-wasakh, all of these things that put people off. So then Shaykh then speaks about how important it is actually, which I found interesting, that a man looks after himself. A man and woman. He goes that some of the ulama, they said, ينبغي للإنسان ينظر في المرآة. He goes, it's a must that people look in a mirror. You should use your mirror at home. He goes, it's a must, which I like that. Okay. ولا أدري. He goes, honestly, man, he goes, I don't know if any of us actually look in the mirror or not. he goes, clearly, there are people who go to an extreme in this, and they are looking in it day and night, every second. All right, and this is israf, okay, because it's israf of time. All right, time is, of course, as valuable as money. And there are others, he goes, don't even recognize what a mirror is. And they just, think that, you should just carry on and whatever. Now, obviously, that does not exist in the West. In the West, people just spend their day and night just looking in the mirror. And in the East, in the villages and so on and so forth, they'll go, weeks, like genuinely. They discover, oh, right. They'll see a reflection and say, that's interesting. Yeah. So there's got to be a balance. And then from there on, he then says, for example, and he gave the example of a nosebleed and the drops of blood, and you need to be aware of these things. And, people get put off when they see things like that. The Prophet ﷺ was very, very clear, very careful about blood, the appearance of blood and the, what leads other people to think. All right. And so therefore, not only so the lesson that we should take from this is not only should we be very careful about personal hygiene and how we look in terms of grooming, but also if you have companions and friends, that in this country, I don't know about this country, but certainly in many cultures, there's a big thing now where it's embarrassing to tell your friend that, he has some mucus or he has some, I don't know, whatever in the eye or something which is not nice, because you feel embarrassed to tell that person that. What will they think and so on. So it's clear from an Islamic adab point of view that cannot be considered. If it's something that that your brother or sister would not want them to be, seen with, then you should definitely tell them. And you should definitely inform them of that. That's the actual adab, not the adab of I'm not going to embarrass him. You know what I'm trying to say? It's far more embarrassing that in the public they carry on. So that's, I think, a nice point that he makes. All right. The next... a hadith, we're going to come to that later because it's actually a large topic. And we're not just talking about spit. You see, spit is something which, saliva or spit or spittle. Spittle, is that a medical phrase? No, I mean, is spittle a cultural phrase or is it an actual... Dentist is asleep.
Sorry. Your finger, man.
Your Bendu, what's the question?
I have no idea what was the question.
Spittle at him.
Destroy the dust online just for your sake, man.
Don't destroy no darses. Listen, tell me, is spittle a real word or is it saliva?
No idea.
Blind leading the blind. That's the problem. So anyway, the point is that saliva is being swallowed all the time. Okay? You're going to have some input on that at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spittle saliva, especially if you get it from the mouth.
You had to go to Google that. You're a dentist. You spend your whole life looking at people's mouths and you can't work out whether spittle is being swallowed all the time. You're absolute flipping.
Official term is saliva, isn't it? Spittle. From maybe if we were studying textbooks in the 1900s, we might come across spittle. Yeah? In the 20s. whatever.
Is that what it is? Like spittle is the original word.
Maybe, yeah. Sounds like a
Spittle.
isn't it?
Anyway, the point is that when we're talking about this is not spittle. This is my point, because that's always being swallowed. Whether you're aware of it, not aware of it, it's always going down, something going down. Yeah? The point I'm talking about is that which you are bringing up from the chest, okay, which is mucus and phlegm and so on, and it's not originating in the mouth, and then swallowing it. So up from the bronchioles or wherever they're living, and then down to the esophagus and into your intestine. So that's this has got nothing to do with spit. All right, we mustn't be so unscientific to define spit as phlegm. Phlegm is what from the chest, right? Phlegm is never in the mouth, yeah?
Originating from the chest.
Originating from the chest, yeah. Okay, all right. So the next then part is وَتُسَنُّ صَلَاتُهُ إِلَى sutra. This is what I want to clock today, all right? It is a sunnah to pray towards a sutra. This is the Hanbali position in the Hanbali school, and there are a number of scholars that say it's obligatory. We need to look into this in more detail. So Shaykh says, وَإِذَا عَبَّرَ الْفُقَهَاء رَحِمَهُمُ اللَّهِ بِكَلِمَةِ السُنَّةِ تُسَنُّ rather. If the fuqaha, the jurists, they say something is a sunnah, then by that they mean that if you do it, you get rewarded, and if you don't do it, then you don't get rewarded. That's according to the fuqaha, what the word sunnah means. Why is this a sunnah? Because the Prophet ﷺ ordered for it to be done. And a number of hadith. The first of them, إِذَا صَلَّى أَحَدُكُمْ فَلْيَسْتَتِرْ وَلَوْ بِسَهْمٍ. Hadith narrated by Imam Ahmad and Ibn Khuzaymah. Ibn Khuzaymah references 810, and it was, and Imam al-Hakim said that this is authentic according to the conditions of Muslim. If you pray, then if any of you are to pray, then let him take a sutra, even if it is an arrow. Okay? If one of you is to pray, then let him. فَلْيَسْتَتِرْ. فَلْيَسْتَتِرْ in the Arabic is a form of command using a present verb. Okay? So let him then take a sutra. وأما فعله فقد كان النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام تركز له العنزة في أسفاره فليصلي إليها. All right. Shaykh says, what are the wisdoms from a sutra? Why would we want to use a sutra? The Prophet the first one he says is that it protects the prayer from being made deficient or being invalidated. I like the fact that he said that. All right, that's obviously opening us up for the next couple of lessons. Right, at least you're protecting your prayer from being made deficient or being invalidated by someone who is going to walk in front of you. Putting a sutra makes it clear. I walk around. All right, it's a clear indication to a person. Secondly, it restricts the eyesight and protects the eyesight of the glance, beg your pardon. It protects the glance of the one who's praying. It restricts it. It just keeps it within your whatever. If you've got an item there, the maximum you're going to do is to look at the item. And looking at the item isn't the end of the world, because it's only a foot past your sajda point, which is where you're meant to be looking anyway. So you'd look at that, you'd look back. Open the whole game up though, keep a big open space, open room, then your sight is going there all the way down to the bottom, and that's not good. And he goes, especially, Shaykh said, especially if it has jirm. Jirm means bulk or mass. That's why it's a sunnah to put something quite big. When I say quite big, I mean like this size, right? It's a good sunnah to have something of bulk, of mass, so that it actually does physically restrict your gaze, if you like. Okay, and that includes, of course, makes your heart more present, because it makes your eyes more present, and stops your glance going too far. The third one, which we should love most, is that this is copying and emulating the Prophet ﷺ. This is what he loved to do. And if you notice, the Shaykh said, what are the wisdoms behind the sutra? And he gave the first one, he gave the second one, and then he actually gave you the one that counts, which is the reason that we do it. Because maybe we don't know, all right? Maybe there are some people that don't get restricted by their glance, and they still look all over the place. We don't know what the actual reason of the sutra is. We can have a good guess, and clearly it's a very strong indicator to someone that there's this person praying. And more importantly, it encloses a person. It allows other people to get about and doesn't inconvenience them. But if we don't know, at least we know that the Prophet ﷺ used to do that. Now, something similar to this, of course, is the love of the Prophet ﷺ to pray behind a pillar. So whenever he would go into Masjid Nabawi, he would head directly to the pillar, right? And again, this is the way of just closing things down, and going to the front. Now, obviously, it is a really, really bad habit of Muslims, but they're mostly unbar Muslims, ignorant Muslims, who go to the back of a masjid and pray. And they're praying in the back of the masjid. It's just a disaster, that is. That's a disaster for the look of the masjid. It's a disaster for what this person's doing, for the movement of people, especially when they need to go behind them, and so on and so forth. Anyway, Sheikh then says that it's clear that our author considers that it is a sunnah to pray towards a sutra, whether it is in a home, whether it's away. This is whether there is a fear that a person is going to pass by, whether there is absolutely no concern because you're praying, for example, at home. You're praying at home in the corner of your house, so there is no threat of anyone passing you by. There is no restrictions in the hadith, right? So it's to be used at all times. However, and therefore, as a result of this discussion about what about if there's no fear of people going or not going, some of the scholars said that it is not a sunnah to have a sutra if there is no danger of someone cutting your prayer. So if you know that you're alone in a house, in a corner, or in a room, and you know that no one's going to cut you up, then it is not sunnah for you to have a sutra. And this is mentioned especially by the Malikis, and it's narrated in the book of fiqh known as Al-Mudawwana. Sheikh said, but however, the correct position is that it is a sunnah, okay, and it is a general ruling. This is regardless of whether a person knows that there's someone who's going to come or not going to come, etc., etc. Now, Sheikh says that it's clear that Hanabila have gone with the majority of scholars, which is that it's a sunnah. However, there are some that said that no, it is obligatory. Now, those, by the way, the ones that the majority that said that it is a sunnah, they said the reason it's a sunnah is because it's not from the essential parts of the prayer. The prayer's validity does not depend upon it. It's not internal aspect of the prayer. It's not from the preconditions of the prayer. Rather, it's from the perfection, the mukammalat, or mukammilat, which is those which complete the absolute perfection of this presentation of the prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In terms of its, like having the lights dimmed if they're too bright disturbs you, making sure that distractions are off, TVs and all whatever are off. These are little things that you do to try to improve the quality of the prayer. Maybe delaying it because of food, so you eat the food so you're not thinking about that. All of these things, they do not invalidate the prayer if you don't do them, but certainly it's a sunnah to take care about your state of heart and mind before you actually pray. However, so why is it that the scholars consider it to be a sunnah? What are the evidences before we look at the evidences of the scholars who said it's obligatory? The first evidence is the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He said, إِذَا صَلَّى أَحْدُكُمْ إِلَى شَيْءٍ يَسْتُرُهُ مِنَ النَّاسِ فَأَرَادَ أَحَدٌ أَن يَجْتَازَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ فَلْيَدْفَعْهُ. This hadith is narrated by, this is actually a hadith that we narrated before. I'm going to give you the reference, 243. This hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri is in the issue of thingy. 1 second. Yeah, it is narrated in Bukhari, hadith number 509. If one of you is to pray towards something that would be a barrier from the people, and someone is going to try and cross you, then repel him. Then let him repel him. Alright, so the hadith indicates if one of you is to pray towards a sutra, a barrier, and someone is to cross in between your hands, meaning in front of you, while the sutra is there, not going around it is the implication, then repel that person. Alright? Shaykh Uthaymeen said, the statement, if one of you is to pray towards something that will be a barrier for him, indicates that sometimes a person does pray towards one and doesn't pray towards one. You get the point? Yeah? If someone is to pray towards, which means that if someone is or someone is not, in brackets. So therefore it's indicating it's not obligatory, because the way that the language is that's indicating sometimes the person doesn't do it. Sometimes the person does. And when you do, make sure you do this. So that's the argument, which is indicating that it's obviously therefore not obligatory. Alright? The second evidence is the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma أنه أتى في منى والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي فيها بأصحابه إلى غير جدار. Hadith narrated by Bukhari in the book of prayer, chapter Sitr al-Imam Sutratu man khalfahu. The chapter of the sutra of the Imam is the sutra for the people behind him. That's Bukhari's position. But anyway, this hadith translated is that Ibn Abbas, he said, I came to the Prophet ﷺ whilst he was in Mina, and he was praying with his companions, but not to a wall. But not to a wall. He was praying, but not to a wall. That's it. That's all the hadith says. Now Mina, it was not tent city like it was, people all inside, big communal areas. Mina is, obviously, even now it's still open, but I mean, now it's dominated by big communal tents. So people are praying inside with walls. At that time, it was an open area. Ironically, you know the way that we, when we go Hajj and we kind of, make sure we get everybody ready mentally for Muzdalifah. Muzdalifah and Mina were exactly the same back then. So those who've been Hajj with me, when I explain how our mentality should be, I do explain this point, which is sometimes lost on people, that we create an experience today. If your guide or your scholar or the person you go with to Hajj understands Hajj, we create an experience which is entirely new. There is no such thing as creating a old school Hajj experience. You're creating an artificial new experience. So when we try to make a big thing out of Muzdalifah and create the mindset to enjoy it or to bear it, and then create the mindset to enjoy or bear Mina, etc., 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 that's because that is what Mina and Muzdalifah is today. Back in the old days, there was absolutely no difference between the reality of staying in Muzdalifah and in Mina. If you said someone today that Muzdalifah and Mina are the same, they would say, don't be silly. There's Mina Asman Farak, and in Mina, it's like 5-star. And when you get to Mina, you're crying your eyes out, right? But after you've slept in Muzdalifah, you're thinking, yeah. So it's all about, and you see, now when you're telling people in lectures and lessons, be ready, be grateful, be ready, be grateful, this is not part of Hajj. This is not part of the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ, because Mina and Muzdalifah would have been the same, and staying in Mecca was the same, and when they camped on the way here is the same. There is all open, there's no houses, there's no tents, you got your own little tent you're carrying, or your own sleeping bag, and you just put it out and you sleep. There's no difference in the terrain or X or Y or whatever. So just remember that next time that you're preparing for that. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's praying in the open parts of Mina, but open. There's not open. What did he say? Not towards the wall. The majority of the scholars took from this that, therefore, because he didn't pray towards the wall, sutra is not needed. In fairness, as I'm indicating, that doesn't mean that he didn't take a sutra. It means he didn't pray towards the wall. And it indicates that the Prophet ﷺ's preference is always praying towards the wall, which we know it is. If there was an area where there were no pillars, then he would pray towards the wall. I mentioned to you the hadith, I don't know, a couple of lessons ago, that once a donkey came into the masjid and the Prophet ﷺ was praying, and he, as it was about to go in between him, he didn't want it to cut him in the prayer, so he went right up to the front wall of the masjid, and he right close so that it could pass behind him, and then he took the couple of steps back. So it is way that he prays towards a wall. That's as solid, as closed down, as focused as it gets. I think you understand that concept, when it comes to memorization. I don't think any of us in the West use that process. Right, do we? Staring at a wall, memorizing? No one ever did exams or anything like that, right? Yeah, I think it's only us that we learned that idea in the East, memorizing towards a wall. I used to memorize towards a wall. It just shuts everything else off, isn't it? Right. And then the third hadith of the Sunniya, that it's Sunnah, is the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fi fada' laysa bayna yadayhi shay'. This hadith is narrated by Imam Ahmad and Al-Bayhaqi, and the hadith is weak, in honesty. Ibn Abbas said that the Prophet ﷺ prayed in the open and there was nothing in between his hands whatsoever. This is more specific than the previous one. There was nothing in between his hands whatsoever. Sheikh says that, yeah, there's definitely no doubt that this hadith has some issues, but in meaning is supported by the previous one, so we're good to go. So the fourth evidence, Sheikh says, is that أن الأصل براءة ذمة, that the basic principle in Islam is that we are free of any obligations, which is good. And it's a really good and strong point. The asl in Islam is that you have the burden of proof to obligate things upon me. As it stands, if you don't have a real kick of evidence to obligate something upon me, then I am free of obligations. This is a very important principle in Sharia, by the way. Okay? Al-Qawl al-Thani, the second position on the matter, that the sutra is wajib, that it is obligatory, which is held by some scholars, some of the Shafi'is and others as well, even some of the Hanabila, but in minority, is because the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلْيَسْتَتِرْ. Yani first, the evidence is because he commanded it. Let him take a sutra, which is an obligation in basic words. As for the hadith that I just mentioned of Ibn Abbas, that the Prophet ﷺ prayed outside and there was nothing between his hands, they said the hadith is weak, so they've already dealt with that one. And they said, as for the hadith of that he didn't pray towards the wall, then they said, well, the negation of the wall does not negate anything else. It could have been something else smaller, etc. And they said, so that's their response to that. And as for the response to the first hadith, which is when one of you prays towards the sutra and someone does this and then do that, then they said, this indicates that a person يصلي إلى sutra وإلى يعني. They said this is their weakest part. They said that this hadith clearly indicates that, yeah, you do pray towards the sutra, which is what we're saying, and sometimes you might not, but it's still obligatory, which is a weak response if you think about it. So Shaykh Uthaymeen summarizes the point up, and it's the class position as well, that the majority of the scholars, however, did state to their position that it's a sunnah, and that is the strongest position in terms of the evidences, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And Shaykh makes a nice point. He goes, and frankly for me, as far as I'm concerned, he goes, if there was absolutely nothing authentic in this chapter whatsoever for our evidences, the simple fact that al-aslu fil ashya, or al-asl bara'at al-dhimma, that the basic principle in our life is that we are free of obligations until someone obligates something upon us, is the strongest evidence out of all of these. Because if our evidences are not strong enough to make it sunnah, there's certainly nothing strong on their side to make it obligatory. Nice point. Okay, very nice fiqhi point. So that's that. Okay, then the Shaykh says, as for the ma'moom, the one who is following, the followers in a masjid, then it is not sunnah for them to take a sutra, because the companions radiallahu anhum, they prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ all the time, and there was not a single one that took a sutra. So that's clear. That's done with. Then that leads to the next question. All right, they never took a sutra. However, is it permissible to walk between the prayer lines in a jama'ah when they're praying behind the imam? Is that permissible or not? The Shaykh says that there are two positions to the scholars, those that allow it and those that don't allow it. Those that said the first position is that it's not allowed. It is haram to walk between their hands. Their evidence, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, لو يعلم المار بين يدي المصلي ماذا عليه لكان يقف 40 خيرا له من أن يمر بين يديه. The hadith that we covered before, hadith which is sahih, that if the person that was about to walk between the hands of the musalli knew what was going to happen to him, knew what sin he would earn, ماذا عليه, it would be better for him to wait for 40 than to continue go past that person, go past his hands, yani go past him. Their argument is this hadith doesn't say we're restricted or doesn't. It's a general hadith. Why are you saying it doesn't apply to this guy? That's their evidence. You get their point? They said the hadith is am. The hadith is general. It didn't say it is restricted. And then from an aql point of view, they give ta'leel wa'allalu. So first of all, they give the hadith, which is the sunnah way. Then after the sunnah has been put forward, then they put their own aql forward. The aql is أن الإشغال الذي يكون للإمام والمنفرد بالمرور بين أيديهما حاصل بالمرور بين يدي المأموم. He said that frankly, the idea that you don't get disturbed is not true. If a person cuts the imam, and if the person cuts the imam, then that means all of your prayers cut. That's basically the argument that's being made. All right, they're saying that it's not allowed for anybody to have their prayer cut. Only the imam can't have it cut. They're saying if the imam's prayer is cut, then whatever is cutting all of our prayers, when the imam's prayer is cut and all of ours is cut, is going not to be any less by us physically having a guy cut our prayer as well. I don't know whether I explained that properly. What I mean is that the disturbance, the actual physical disturbance and ruining of my prayer, if that happened because the imam's sutra was cut, then that certainly happens if my sutra is cut. That's what they're arguing. They're saying, I'm still standing there and someone's walked past me. If this is an issue of calibrating the disturbance level, right, or measuring the disturbance level, then certainly the disturbance of my guy cutting in front of me is at least the same size or the magnitude as the imam getting cut, if we're going to use aql. Sheikh says, he goes, because he goes, in actual fact, it's far worse. That guy might be a one-off, who might just cut. He goes, sometimes you'll see a whole line of people in front of you. It's just a constant flow. Now, obviously, that's not the case here. He's clearly talking about the haram or, madness kind of places like that. And that is what happens. You've just got a constant flow. And he goes, especially in the big masjids and Masjid al-Haram and Masjid Nabawi. فَعَلَى هَذَا. So according to this position, it is not allowed for anyone to go amongst the Musallin. The second position in this issue is that it's not a problem بِالْمَرُورِ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيَ الْمَأْمُومِينَ, that it is not a problem for someone to go across the what am I getting wrong here, man? Why do I keep struggling? Not line, man. In front of. To cut in front of the people who are praying. That's the word, yeah. It's not a problem to cut in front of the people who are praying behind a imam in the jama'ah. What's their evidence? The action of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma حينما جاء والنبي عليه الصلاة والسلام يصلي بالناس بمنى وهو راكب على حمار آتان أي أنثى فدخل في الصف وأرسل الآتان ترتع وقد مرت بين يدي بعض الصف قال ولم ينكر ذلك علي أحد لا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا أحد من الصحابة وهذا الإقرار يخصص عموم حديث لو يعلم المار. Yeah, nice. So Sheikh says that the evidence for this is the hadith of Ibn Abbas. He said, when the Prophet ﷺ was praying in Mina with the rest of the companions, I came late and I was on a female donkey. What's a female donkey? What's the ass and the mule and everything? Where's all the donkey experts, man? Everyone's an expert these days, and you can't even tell me what a female donkey is. What's an ass? Ass is not a gender. Ass, I think, is a mixture between a donkey and a horse, isn't it? What's a mule? Lala, how many mules do you have at home? Is his name not Colin? Ty, isn't it?
Male donkey is an ass.
Right.
Yeah, a female is a Jenny.
A Jenny. Excellent. What a sick line. What? Tell me, spell that one. Tell me it's Jenny so I can just. Yes, bro. Ammunition, yeah, it's stored for the rest of my life. For all the Jennies in my life. Right. Yep. Female donkey. That's mental. Is that Oxford Dictionary?
Wikipedia.
No, that's not good enough, Yara. Wikipedia. I'll give my own bestie done on Wikipedia. We want Oxford Dictionary any proof. Huh?
This sounds suspicious.
It does sound suspicious. I've never heard that before. Anyway, he's on a female donkey. The female donkey goes past and he went on the donkey between the lines. He said, as I went past the donkey, I went past the lines on the female donkey, and then I had to tie up the donkey and, get it, whatever. Not a single person, neither the Prophet or the companions, mentioned a single thing to me. Neither then or neither after the prayer. So that is, Sheikh says, this action is what specifies the general hadith. Therefore, we learn that if a person is by himself, they have to then protect themselves. But when they are in the position, then the rest of the musallin, they don't get affected by someone who's going up and down. Shaykh Uthaymeen concludes. He goes, the correct position, according to my opinion, is that people are not sinful if they cut a person who's praying in a congregation. However, and I will translate literally, إذا وجب مندوحة عن المرور بين يد المأمومين فهو أفضل. If there's some kind of way of getting out of that situation where they can avoid having to pass by the prayers, then this is far better. So a person should try to avoid this. Okay? Because there is no doubt that you are disturbing people. And they are. Of course they are. Right? And this is one of the reasons why I don't like children in the mosque. I mean, like 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds. Don't worry, bro. It's okay. Literally, he was asleep and he goes, huh? Miskin. So, we're talking 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. One of the things that they do is they go up and down causing havoc in the lines. It's a madness. And if you're a glasses wearer and, miskin like that, then you can kiss your glasses goodbye, your phones goodbye, your khushu goodbye. And, if they take a seat in front of you, then, God knows what's happening in that nappy as well. It's a disaster. The whole thing's a disaster. Kids, are not babies are not meant to be in the masjid. So, what about then adults, who don't even care, just bowling down? So he goes, there's no doubt that thingy, and he goes, and to prevent becoming distracted in the prayer is actually a objective in Sharia, something which is required to do, because this is from the perfection of the prayer. And just like you don't want anyone to disturb you in the prayer, then it's a must that you don't also disturb their prayer as well, because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith that none of you will believe until you love for yourself what you love for your brother. Love for your brother what you love for yourself. Okay? So this hadith narrated by Bukhari. So that's it. Alright. The Shaykh then said that this sutra is... called Jack. Is she having a laughter or is that real? Is it? What? Because she said so?
No, I said this.
It's true, yeah. Mariam got it right. Jack. So that's not real. That's some joke then, isn't it? A Jenny or a Jeanette, or I don't know what that is a term for a female donkey. Okay, I think Abdul Mahit, that's where jackass comes from. Ah.
That's not the same donkey. You said African donkey.
Yeah.
The Japanese donkey.
Yeah, because you male donkey. It's a classic feminist word, that is definitely. Just part of their takeover. Basically cussing people by not even calling them a donkey, but really cuss them by calling you an ass. You're a jackass. And just this male, female misogyny, isn't it? How does that even make sense? Female misogyny.
Jenny doesn't even sound insulting, to be honest.
Jackass.
No, Jenny.
Jenny. Yeah, it sounds like a praise. Oh, you Jenny. Actually, to be honest, I like it. I think I'm getting used to that one. I like the idea of Yeah, flipping Jenny. Yeah, I like it. Alright. So Mesa is telling us that when she was praying in the masjid, there was once a kid hitting my backpack with my water bottle. Oh, I had a laptop in it. Yeah, okay. I was going to say, what are you doing with a laptop down in the back? Anyway, right, come down and see if any questions. Quickly, before we move on to the next part. Yep, Ijlal, go and sort it out. Blah, 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 blah. Right, okay. So, yes. Yeah.
So
On the issue of, it's better not to disturb people when
Yes.
you're praying.
Yes.
But obviously, if you're the commonest reason is because your wudu's broken.
Yes.
So you can't use that as a
Which
reason
is
to stay
obviously,
where you are.
which is obviously why it's allowed to do it.
But obviously, it's a great decision to stay where you are.
Oh, of course. Let there be absolutely no doubt about what I'm about to say. If you have broken wudu, it is completely haram to stay where you are. You have to get out. It is completely permissible to walk between the lines, not just for breaking of wudu. If you know that there are big places, big gaps in the prayer, right, and you know that you're stuck somewhere, then you go and you cut across the lines. However, the point that's being made is that this is something which you should do reluctantly. That this is, the wider point being made is that don't break your wudu, make wudu before you come early to the masjid, don't come so lazy late knowing, I'll find a place. Do you know what I mean? Which is actually what happens in the haram. Alright? A lot of people, when they come to the haram, they get used to the idea after one or two prayers, they now have got used to the timings and they get to see huge gaps. And they say, yeah, it's not a problem me coming late because I'm just going to come late and walk all the way through the gaps. You know what I'm trying to say? That's the point which is being made. At the same time, frankly, I think it can also be argued that when this is done at the haram, it's less of an issue. Because the people is almost like they're completely expecting and used to that kind of thing. So that's also a kind of like a balancer. Right. This sutra. Yes.
Sorry, I was just wondering, like, for example, if you've got like the prayer rows and you can see a gap in the middle, maybe a couple of rows ahead, is it better to basically cross over and join that gap?
Yes. Good question. Yeah, so this is the point, right? If you are praying in a normal masjid and you have a couple of lines, but you can see, line ahead or whatever, that there is a gap, then what's better? The filling of that gap and therefore going across the people, or leaving it? So what's better, of course, is to educate the people. And by the way, educate the people means that you can even say, please fill that gap, as long as it doesn't disturb the imam, right? This is the kind of thing that you could say. And the gap must always be filled. It's not permissible to leave gaps in the prayer. And the one who closes the gap has done something which is from the sunnah and also done something which is rewarded individually as well. Now, at the same time, there's got to be a limit. By that I mean that if for you to go and fill that gap, it means you're going to go walk through a whole line of people like this, all that way. And then, just for example, have to push through one or two people, right? In the next line. And then walk some more, then the answer is no. Okay? Because taking that kind of burden upon yourself, that's just too much. Everything has got to be weighed up. But if you know that the whole thing is very loose, people are standing very, very loose, very far apart, people are going through anyway, moving, then yeah. Also, what comes into this judgment, this decision, is how much is left of the prayer, how many gaps there are in the mosque, right? Now, why do I say that? Because when you come to the haram and when you pray in the haram, there is an adab of praying in the haram. There's a fiqh to praying in the haram. We know that there are a number of very big gaps, like huge gaps. And then we know that there are thousands of small gaps. And we can't win all of those battles. And so from a personal responsibility point of view, you should know that Allah did not make for you to spend your entire prayer moving forward, which easily could happen in either of the haramain for any prayer. You could keep on filling gaps. It's a disaster, right? So the balance is a combination of never just praying at the back, never just joining a line of prayer, always walking forward to the big area to close the big gap in the middle to get to the front part. And then when you get to the front part, and if a rak'ah has gone, then you're kind of happy to sacrifice a rak'ah. But anything more than that, it's just not right. And you got to just stop and stay. Even though you can see another gap, and then another gap, and another gap. Because I swear to you, you will walk all the way through, in the Haramain, and the prayer will finish and you will still not fill all the gaps. So it's a balancing job. So the answer is that it is definitely worth moving in between lines to fill a gap, but that moving has got to be taken into context of where it is, how many times, how many gaps, and so on and so forth. But if it's just one movement for one gap, then you fill it. What is that, Lo?
I was just going to say, the pack mentality is because you come into the mosque, you fill one gap and that's it.
That's it. Game over.
Because if you do that disaster of going down the line, you get 3/4 down the line and someone else has filled that gap and you stop.
And then you're lost.
No man's land.
And then you're stuck. And you got nowhere to turn back to. You go back and then you're looking at him, he's looking at you, and then...
Mentality is just fill one gap.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I want to make it clear that this idea that you have the responsibility to fill every single gap is not right. You know, I'm glad that you guys brought this point up, because it is also indicative of the newly practicing extremist kind of... Extreme is a word, but it's that super keen kind of mind. You do see a lot of the younger and more practicing kind of, want to do the sunnah, want to do sunnah, who take hadith literally but don't understand the fiqh behind it. So they're like, I'm going to cover every single gap. The covering of the gaps is within your own capacity. And capacity, they're saying, what's your evidence, brother? It doesn't have any evidence, right? It's just common sense that I'm not meant to spend my entire prayer walking, covering gaps, because that's what will happen. Yep. So just to minimize this issue that you're talking about, the fear is that you wouldn't be trying to, that's that group's problem. And that's that group's problem. And mine is here. And then you're not even going to have to fall into this point. So in terms of describing the sutra, it is something which is standing. All right, it's got to have some kind of elevation, such as a saddle, because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is that it was that he used a mu'khiratul rahl, a saddle, which Sheikh is saying is made of wood. Is it? Has a wooden structure maybe. I thought it was just pure leather. Maybe it's got a wooden frame. Anyway. And he's saying it's 3 spans, which is أو 3-4 ذراع, about 30 centimeters. Well, how big is a saddle? And it's like 30 centimeters. 45 centimeters. 3 handspans. What's a handspan? 15? Isn't it? 15? Something like that. It's got to have size. We want size. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ شَاخِصًا, and if you can't find something that has bulk or is solid, okay, if you can't find something which has some kind of solid kind of nature to it, then you pray towards a line. فَلْيُصَلِّ إِلَى خَطٍ وَالْخَطُّ لَهُ أَثَرٌ بِالْأَرْضِ لأن الأرض فيما سبق مفروشة بالرمل أو بالحصباء، وإذا خط الإنسان صار له أثر بين، لكن أرض المساجد الآن مفروشة بالقماش، فهل نقول إن الخط الذي هو الخط التلون يجزع عن الخط الذي له أثر؟ This is nice. He goes that obviously a line is what you do outside. So if you're praying outside, you literally step forward and you draw a line and you've got a clear kind of indication, whatever. So simple thing, sutra, you got to do it as much as possible. It's sunnah, anything that has size. If you're at home, use a cushion, okay? A cushion is the right thing, or the Quran rail, which is the classic, and anything else, a chair, blah, 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 or towards a wall if you're fortunate enough, or towards the corner of a room if the door's not going to open. In the absence of something physical, then you draw a line. If you're inside, the Sheikh asks, now all of the places they have carpet. And in the carpet areas, there's no way to draw something. So is the line of the design, he said, or a color line in a carpet the same as the line that you draw? Sheikh said, some of the scholars said, it suffices. يُجْزِئُ كُلُّ مَا اعْتَقَدَهُ سُتْرًا, that it suffices. That would be sufficient. Sheikh says, however, for me, I've got a problem with this. He goes, I don't like this idea. I got a problem with it. He goes, the obvious, what seems to me, which is obvious, is that this is not enough. It's just too artificial. He goes that if there was a line which was very kind of pronounced on the end of the carpet, then that's okay. Because that is something which is independent. Yani, what his point is that if you're praying on a musalla, janamaz, yeah, then that's okay because the end of that is a proper line. He goes, but this line that you're seeing here, this is not a line. This is his position. He goes, the evidence for my position is because the Prophet ﷺ said, فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَلْيَخِطَّ خَطًّا. So whoever, and this is narrated by Imam Ahmad and by Abu Dawood, and this is where we will close. And it seems authentic. He said the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that for whoever does not find something like a saddle, then let him draw a line. Let him draw a line. About this hadith, Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah in Bulugh al-Maram, he said, he goes, this hadith is absolutely authentic. There is no, this hadith is absolutely hasan, acceptable. It's not right that the one who claims that this hadith has got some doubt in it. لأن Ibn Salah rahimahullah, because Ibn Salah was another Shafi'i don, super king, yani muhaddith. He said this hadith is mutarib, shaky because of its problems. Shaykh says that yani al-mutarib is one from the categories of weak hadith. Wal Hasan hujja, whereas Hasan, then the ruling of Hasan, which is the middle ruling, acceptable, is an evidence. وهو ما رواه عدل خفيف الضبط بسند متصل وسلم من الشذوذ والعلة القادحة. For those who are hadith students, what is a Hasan hadith? He says that which has been narrated by a trustworthy person who is not so accurate, okay, not so accurate, trustworthy, but not super accurate in their statements, always need a little bit more extra information from somewhere else, with a continuous chain of people, no breaks, and the hadith itself does not have anything odd or contradicts any other authentic evidence and doesn't have any hidden faults, which is nice actually. Well, of course, Shaykh Uthaymeen has really nice small essays in hadith sciences, so you expect him to be spot on with that. So, وَعَلَى هَذَا فَيَكُونَ الْحَدِيث حُجَّةً. So therefore, this hadith for me is a hujjah, a clear evidence. And if the hadith is a clear evidence and a person does not find something solid, then he needs to draw a line. He goes, how do you draw a line? هل أخط خطا مقوسا كالهلال أو ممتدا كالعصا. Sheikh said, I didn't think about this. Sheikh said, yani, what do you do? He goes, okay, you draw a line. The hadith says draw a line. What does that draw a line? You mean draw a line like a line? Or do you draw like a, make a zone? So he goes, draw a what's that called? Semicircle, arc. He goes, do you draw an arc? Or do you draw a straight line? Sheikh says, any line. He goes, the fuqaha didn't mention it, and the hadith doesn't mention it. So therefore, as long as it is yani an indicator, then that is fine. I'll be honest with you, I find a problem with this opinion. And I think that if you're in a masjid and you are unable to pray towards a sutra, then the line that you are going to pray with is acceptable. I don't think, it's an issue of whether this line is the line that you should have done, because it's not. Again, and that's the end of that. But the point for me, which is interesting, is we're thinking that the illah, and this is a good example. We're thinking that the illah is the line itself. Yeah? What if I say to you that the action of drawing the line is half of the barakah of this actual action? A person who went forward, drew a line, it's like he's setting, I don't know, it's like, a bit of a formal ritual. Psychological. It's like, when it just came to my mind, but the rugby teams, when they face off, they could just face off and end of it. But obviously, All Blacks want to go and give it the hoo-ha, right? And it gets them already. It's different. They get themselves into the zone and whatever it is. And there are certain things that a person should do, right? They get to the prayer early. They get to the line early. It's sunnah to pray Tahiyatul Masjid, be there. It's sunnah to make dua. There's clear things. You draw a line. It means you mean business. You see some people, And the reason I mention this point is because one of the things that really does irritate me is people who just rock up and pray. You know, the rocker upper in prayer. You just stand, just bowls up and just Allahu Akbar. Yani. Wherever they are, just don't care in the masjid. They don't like, you know. And there's got to be some. So I like the idea. So actually, I like what Shaykh Uthaymeen is saying. That, you know, people are just going to bowl straight into a line and Allahu Akbar. There's no kind of focus, and then they're going to keep looking. That is what that is what's being referred to, by the way, a line in the earth. And by the way, I also think, just me thinking about it, I don't know what you guys think, that if I was to pray in this masjid with these lines and look at these lines and say that's my sutra, I can see my whole glance going up and down. Whereas if I went and I drew a line, then it's no, I draw a line between us. You know, when you meant it, if I draw a line, I'm actually now kind of looking at that line. I don't think I'm looking past that line.
Shall we bring permanent markers in?
Don't bring permanent markers. Although, you know, we use that over there, and, you know, it was a mission. I think they're still there, the marks, isn't it? To show the people to, you know, to think. So, however, I want you to know that don't do anything if you can't. You're in a masjid. Obviously, it's not obligatory. We believe that. And your prayer is fine. And at least we can take the khilaf of the scholars. So pray towards one of these lines and use it to keep your glance restricted. And I think that's going to be good enough. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Right. Someone chuck me a pen somewhere. I need to make a mark here. Yeah, if there are gaps in the rows, how much movement? Oops. Whose was this? If there are gaps in the rows, then how much movement is valid for you to close gap, assuming the closing is obligated? So the closing is obligated to a level, and I think that 1 step or 2 steps is fine. It shouldn't become, you know, scholars say 3 steps and this much distance, blah, 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 blah. But I think you want to restrict it to 2 steps. And crossing others is okay if one comes into Jamaat late from fear of missing the Salah. Yes, that's permissible. That's what Ibn Abbas actually did. Yep. If a woman crosses you in your prayer, we're coming to that next week, and then the week after. What is distance for someone to cross your Salah? We've done that already. Abdul Muhit Ali, where have you been? Go back and check all these lessons. What lessons was that? How many lessons ago did we do the distance thing? Shazad Salim? Zafar? 6, 7. The printed line doesn't tell anyone that you've demarcated. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? What Salan said. You know, that line doesn't not really kind of saying anything other than what everybody else is thinking about it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you you set your stall out by marking something proper, I mean, it is an indication. Yeah. What about using a person as a sutra? What's the evidence? That's good. So, actually, I was going to mention this, that in the masjid, obviously, don't just think that you have to go to a wall or a pillar. Using a person is something which is allowed as well. The evidence, Hamza, is the lack of evidence that is not allowed. Anything that can be taken is something which is permissible. There are some hadith which I'm going to mention next week, and that is, these are, they're not very strong, these points, but I'll just mention them. The Prophet the scholars, they did not allow people to take a fire as a sutra and not to put it in the direction of the qibla as well. So you should kind of, if you're cold and you're praying towards it, you change your angle, all right? Because praying towards the fire, again, is not strong hadith, but this is a basic kind of idea. And there are some scholars that actually took it to the point, they said not even a radiator, all right? So just so that you know. Or the blow heaters. They were, but not the blow heater, man. Not the blow heater. Allah. Shazada, you see that? Should be beside you. Shaz, that burns the right hand side and does nothing for the left. It should always be in front of you. What are you talking about? 2 rakah like this, and you're going to then jump over and then turn the radiator around. Other side of the radiator. What kind of flipping radiators you got? Oh, shut up, man. Gus, man. Why not? If they get up, they get up, obviously. But, you know, most of the time if you come to a masjid, they're staying there, right? Unless it's after the prayer. And if they did get up and go, then at least you did some or part or main part of your prayer. It acts as, I mean, the point is that this is not what you're meant to do, but the point is that it's better than using the carpet line. That's the point. And so, Hamza, what I was going to say is that there's no evidence not to. The evidences that come are general. So, for example, praying towards a mirror or towards a door, that should also be try to be avoided because you're praying towards yourself. Yeah, I'm fine with the radiator, with the blow heater, but the fire you should avoid. All right, a naked flame should be avoided. All right. If you pray, there's some questions before at the bottom. Lala, come down first. Okay. It's okay, Shaz. We'll wait for tomorrow. Don't worry. You, Jenny. Alaikum salam. Widad. I have been trying to find a lesson where we said, I love the way that she's going to ask me to try and find a lesson. I think that's the biggest joke of this whole lesson. Where we said that you should block someone for a step in front of you. How much can you really block a guy? Didn't we mention a story about a guy getting smacked for insisting on passing in front? I'm curious to know how combative you can get without disrespecting the salah. So let's look at this, right? The Prophet ﷺ, we said that it is permissible for you to do exactly what the hadith says. يعني يقاتله. فَلْيُقَاتِلْهُ means that you fight him. Now, obviously, fighting is... I don't know what incident you're referring to about someone getting slapped. Did I say that? No, that's not someone passing. So with that, I can't remember that. I wonder whether you're getting mixed up between what I was saying, Ali radiallahu an, which is narrated in Athar, obviously not hadith, not very authentic, that he was in the front line and someone was trying to pull him back because he was alone in the second line and he wanted someone else to be with him, second person, because you're not meant to stand alone by yourself. Now the problem with that is, number one, you are allowed to stand by yourself if you didn't do it on purpose, if you're the only person there, and number two, that doesn't mean that you pull some guy from the front. And so someone was pulling Ali once and then twice, and then he turned around, he smacked him one, and then he went back to his place. So that is what Ali radiallahu anhu did from the front line. You don't pull someone out of their line that they just spent half an hour getting there early before you, just for you to pull him out like a pack. Yeah. So that's that. I don't know of another one, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You are able to struggle, whatever, but you shouldn't be getting involved in punching and back and forth and XYZ, because, as you said, that's not the prayer itself. You've left the prayer. One single move. You know, when you look at the prayer, the kind of things which are allowed outside the prayer are smooth movements. By the way, if you were like some kind of one of these, jiu-jitsu kind of masters, that could do this kind of thing and whatever, then that would be allowed. Because it's not about what happens to that person, it's about how much movement you're doing. A person normally getting involved in a fight, struggling and all this, that, what the hell is that? But if there's a person who literally is able to just do a Spock move and just press him on the shoulder, on the ear, like that, then I'm down for that behavior. All of that. It doesn't matter what happens to him. That's what I want to say. It's about the movements you make. If you can minimal movement decapacitate, what? Incapacitate. I thought it was decapitate. Incapacitate. Okay. It felt wrong. I was teaching Protect This House. For the longest time, the Protect This House, it had capital punishment in the kids section. And I was on Paras. I taught it in Cardiff and in Ireland, and I kept checking the page. I'm not joking. We taught that for 30 cities for 4 years, and in the book it says it is allowed in Islam capital punishment with children. And I wrote that and I forgot about the word. I just got mixed up between corporal and capital. Anyway, so yeah, that's allowed. Yeah, yes.
If you draw a line, in front of you while you're praying, but someone is about to cross your line.
Outside though, yeah.
Yeah, outside. Do you still shoot them away?
Absolutely. Absolutely, even more so. In actual fact, this is why the hadith is so strict. You've gone to all that effort to make it clear, listen, you want to walk, there's the line, there's my bag, there's my cushion, knock yourself out. And they then still walk in between you, which is like a 3-foot space in a whole area. They genuinely deserve beats, which is why they are to be fought. That's why they are stopped once, stopped twice, and then a third time they are pulled to the ground, pushed away violently, or something like that. That's what the hadith indicates. So no, they must never come in front of you once you've placed your thing down.
But if it was like, for example, in the
In a what?
like a line in the so they can't necessarily
Yep. Yep. So I want you to know that the rule of pushing someone away who comes in front of you when you're praying by yourself is a rule regardless of whether there's a sutra there or not. Taking the sutra covers you more though and covers them more. But technically speaking, it is their problem to know that you're not allowed to cut across a person, whether they see the sutra or not. But that's one of the... But we're not praying to try and find excuses to fight people, which is why you put the sutra there so that you help, your brother or your sister whilst helping yourself and having no drama in the prayer. That's the aim, isn't it? Yep. Right, Solange is like, I don't know what's happened to Solange. I don't know, she's just dropped the tea or something. Have we answered the questions?
Last one, I think.
If you pray by yourself, come down, Lala. Honestly, you're just rubbish today. You are full on rubbish today. If you pray by yourself, is it sunnah to use a sutra? You had full chicken last night. I don't understand you. It's not like you got no calories. You mentioned the reasoning is for... Listen, don't laugh. The guy had 700 calories in 2 days. Think about that for a second. Adult normal daily intake is 2,500 calories. 5,000 over 2 days. The guy had 700. That's why he makes these mistakes. It's not good, man. Tell the guy literally there's nothing left. Look at him. There's nothing left. He's just literally become close plug. No, we're not wrapping up at all. Okay? Don't mess with me next time. Do you understand? Full best thing's going to happen.
And he's like doing dental work.
Still dental work. Yeah.
You should, what's the practice? It's also good over there.
If you
I'll still pull the tooth out, don't worry.
Allah. The question is which one?
All of them.
Allah. If you pray by yourself, is it sunnah to use a sutra? You mentioned the reasoning is possibly so people don't cut you in your prayer. And thus would you be rewarded? Absolutely. Absolutely. I want you to be very, very clear that the cutting of the prayer is not the only reason, which is why, maybe you came late, we went through the different wisdoms of the sutra. I didn't say you can't pray. I don't say it's haram. I think you should avoid praying towards a door that is shiny or a TV, for example, which is often there's a reflection of you directly. And the kid, we'll talk about that next week. All right. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka Allahumma wa atubu ilaik. Sorry. There's chocolates, guys. There's lots, guys. I think Amelia, come take this. And actually, come and take this. Ilmfest, guys. Ilmfest. Okay. So Saturday. This Saturday is in London for those who are in London, and on Birmingham on the Sunday. And I can see that Manchester University has invaded as well, so they can have their events as well. Look at their website; they've got some dodgy events going on as well. ठीक है, जज़ाकुमुल्लाह खैर, अस्सलाम वालेकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू.